we're going to talk about the man who changed everything in the world of arm wrestling, the one and only Denis Cyplenkov. This guy was an absolute beast on the table, with arms the size of tree trunks and a technique so deadly, it could leave his opponents trembling in fear. I mean, just look at this guy. He is one of the greatest arm wrestlers of all time. And how has he changed everything in the world of arm wrestling? Let's find out. Early life and career. Denis Cyplenkov was born in Kryvyi Rog, Ukraine in 1982. Growing up, he was always a big kid. His parents were worried about his health, so they encouraged him to get involved in sports. When Denis was 16 years old, he was introduced to arm wrestling, and he instantly fell in love with the sport. It was like he had found his true calling. At first, Denis wasn't very good. He was still figuring out the techniques and strategies of arm wrestling, and he was often outmatched by more experienced opponents. But Denis was determined to succeed. He spent countless hours practicing, honing his technique and building his strength. He even started to develop his own unique style of arm wrestling, which he would later become famous for. Eventually, all that hard work paid off. Denis started winning local competitions, and he quickly rose up the ranks. He won his first national championship in Ukraine in 2003, and from there, he never looked back. He became one of the most dominant forces in the sport, winning multiple national and international championships and breaking several world records. But it wasn't just his victories that made Denis a legend. It was the way he competed. He had a passion for the sport that was contagious. He loved the thrill of the competition, the rush of adrenaline when he was on the table. And he was always respectful to his opponents, win or lose. People couldn't help but be drawn to him. In fact, Denis was so beloved in the arm wrestling community that he was nicknamed the Russian Hulk. And it wasn't just because of his massive muscles. It was because of his larger-than-life personality and his ability to inspire others. He became a role model for young arm wrestlers all over the world, showing them that with hard work and dedication, anything was possible. Physical attributes and training regime. Denis Cyplenkov's physical attributes were nothing short of impressive. He stood at 6'1" and weighed over 300 pounds of pure muscle. His biceps measured an astonishing 24 inches, and he had hands the size of dinner plates. But it wasn't just his size that made him a formidable opponent in arm wrestling. Denis had incredible strength and endurance, thanks to his intense training regime. Denis' training regime was nothing short of grueling. He spent hours in the gym every day, lifting weights and working on his technique. He was obsessed with improving his strength and endurance, and he pushed himself to the limit every time he trained. One of Denis' signature training methods was his use of resistance bands. He would attach them to his arms and practice arm wrestling movements against them, building his strength and improving his technique. He also used a variety of weights and machines to target specific muscle groups, including his biceps, triceps, forearms, and shoulders. But it wasn't just about lifting weights for Denis. He also focused on his diet, making sure to consume enough protein and nutrients to fuel his intense training regime. He ate a lot of chicken, fish, eggs, and vegetables, and he stayed away from processed foods and sugary drinks. Despite the intensity of his training regime, Denis never lost sight of why he loved arm wrestling. He was always grateful for the opportunity to compete, and he approached every match with a sense of joy and excitement. He knew that his hard work and dedication were paying off, and that every victory was a testament to his incredible strength and skill, mental toughness, and strategy. Denis Cyplenkov's success in arm wrestling was not just due to his physical attributes and training regime. His mental toughness and strategy also played a critical role in his victory. Denis was known for his incredible focus and mental toughness on the table. He never let his opponents intimidate him or distract him from his goal. He had a strong mindset, always believing in his abilities and never giving up even when he faced tough opponents or challenging situations. In addition to his mental toughness, Denis was also a master of strategy. He would analyze his opponent's weaknesses and adjust his technique accordingly. He was always trying out new moves and techniques to keep his opponents guessing, and he was never afraid to take risks. But it wasn't just about outsmarting his opponents for Denis. He also had a deep respect for the sport and for his opponents. He would never resort to dirty tricks or unsportsmanlike behavior, even in the heat of competition. He was always a fair and honorable competitor, and he believed that the true measure of success was not just in winning, but in how you conducted yourself on the table. Top fight. Denis Cyplenkov's career was filled with countless memorable matches and victories. Here are some of his most notable and impressive fights. Denis Cyplenkov versus John Brasink. In 2010, Denis faced off against legendary arm wrestler John Brasink in a highly anticipated match. Denis was able to use his unique top roll technique to defeat Brasink, solidifying his place as one of the best arm wrestlers in the world. Denis Cyplenkov versus Travis Bagent. In 2011, Denis faced off against Travis Bagent in a highly entertaining match. The two athletes were evenly matched, but in the end, Denis was able to pull off the victory with his incredible strength and technique. Denis Cyplenkov versus Andrei Pushkar. Denis and Andrei were longtime rivals, and their matches were always highly anticipated. In 2012, they faced off in what many consider to be one of the greatest arm wrestling matches of all time. The match went back and forth, with both athletes displaying incredible strength and skill, but in the end, Denis was able to pull off the victory. Denis Cyplenkov versus Devon Larratt. In 2014, Denis faced off against Canadian arm wrestler Devon Larratt in a highly anticipated match. The two athletes were evenly matched, but in the end, Denis was able to use his top roll technique to defeat Larratt and solidify his place as one of the best arm wrestlers in the world. How he changed arm wrestling. Denis Cyplenkov's impact on the sport of arm wrestling cannot be overstated. He changed the game in many ways, from his unique physical attributes to his incredible strength and technique. One of the most significant ways that Denis changed arm wrestling was in his approach to training. He pushed the boundaries of what was possible with his intense training regime and his use of resistance bands. He also focused on his diet and nutrition, setting a new standard for how arm wrestlers approach their physical preparation. But Denis' impact on arm wrestling was not just in his physical preparation. He also brought a new level of mental toughness and strategic thinking to the sport. He was always trying out new moves and techniques, and he would analyze his opponent's weaknesses to gain an advantage. He also had a deep respect for the sport and for his opponents, setting a new standard for sportsmanship and fair play in arm wrestling. Denis' unique physical attributes also changed the game of arm wrestling. His massive biceps and hands allowed him to use different techniques and moves that other arm wrestlers simply could not. He also developed a unique style of arm wrestling known as the top roll, which involved using his wrist and forearm to roll his opponent's hand back, giving him an advantage. Denis Cyplenkov's incredible career in arm wrestling has left a lasting impact on the sport. From his early days as a promising young athlete to his dominant reign as one of the best arm wrestlers in the world, Denis has shown what can be achieved through dedication, hard work, and a fierce competitive spirit. His unique physical attributes, rigorous training regime, mental toughness, and strategic approach to the sport have revolutionized the way arm wrestling is played and watched today. His legacy will continue to inspire future generations of arm wrestlers to push themselves to the limit and strive for greatness. Thank you for joining us in this exploration of Denis Cyplenkov's remarkable career. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories about amazing athletes like Denis. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a new upload.